Okay, let's go.
Welcome, everyone. We start the film in a dense forest, where we see an indigenous man hiding behind a tree, visibly terrified. He takes a step forward, but as he steps on a twig, a noise echoes in the silence of the forest. Suddenly, he hears a fierce roar coming from the shadows and begins to run through the underbrush with the creature behind him. A nearby group of indigenous people is beating drums in a frenzied ritual. The sound of the drums resonates through the forest. The man continues to run, shouting for help, but his voice is lost in the noise of the jungle. Suddenly, he falls to the ground, gasping for breath as a little girl, in a distant tent, observes an animal skull, visibly scared. The man takes a deep breath, lying on the ground when suddenly, a sinister hand appears behind him, causing him to pull out a knife in defense. The man, now trembling, quickly turns around and sees a monstrous figure growling in his direction, which grabs him by the neck and brutally kills him. The drums stop abruptly, and the indigenous people hear distant screams, interrupting the ritual in fear. The little girl screams desperately for her father. The scene then cuts to the little girl, now an elderly woman in her home, visibly agitated. She wakes up from a nightmare, falls out of bed, and upon looking into the dark, sees a threatening silhouette. She grabs the phone, but upon turning on the light, realizes that it was just a coat rack with clothes. Scared, she tries to call her granddaughter, Claire, and says in a trembling voice that the creature has come for her. Claire, on the other end of the line, asks what is happening, but the woman does not respond. After a while, we see a car traversing the forest, inside which are Claire, Bree, and Ryan, heading into town. Sheriff Bradley Elkins appears, talking to Claire about how she can get there. Claire responds that it has been 20 years since she last visited that place, and Ryan suggests using the GPS, but she responds that it isn't working. The sheriff, trying to reassure them, says that it is all right, and instructs Claire to go back to mile marker 23. Meanwhile, inside the sheriff's vehicle, we see a man named Ben, who is in custody. He complains about the music, and the sheriff turns up the volume. The conversation continues as the group continues their journey, and Bree spots the town in the distance. Soon Claire informs that they are almost there. Ryan complains that his cell phone has lost signal, and Bree jokes that he will survive one day without his games. Upon reaching the town, the sheriff is waiting. Now he introduces himself as Sheriff Elkins, and Claire greets him, introducing her children. Ryan observes the town and asks if they are in the right place, while Bree finds everything amazing. Suddenly, Ryan realizes that Ben is watching them. Bree, finding it strange, asks what he is looking at, and the sheriff, curious, asks why Claire's grandmother called her in California. Claire then says that maybe her grandmother didn't know who to call, and the sheriff replies that she could have called the local police. Claire says she tends to keep things in the family, and the sheriff, worried, comments that Claire's grandmother was saying some strange things. Claire, with an uncomfortable expression, replies that she does not remember her saying anything that made much sense. The sheriff then asks what a wendigo is, and Claire, not knowing how to respond, freezes and asks where her grandmother is, saying that she will take care of her now. Then the three enter the house. Claire calls for her grandmother while Ryan, curious, observes the skull from the beginning of the film, commenting that it is disgusting. They begin to search for the elderly woman. Ryan enters a room and hears a noise, seeing a sheet moving. As he approaches to check, suddenly the thing begins to walk toward him, startling him and causing him to fall to the ground. When he gets up, it is revealed that the figure is Claire's grandmother. When the women arrive in the room, Ryan asks what she was doing up there, and she replies that she doesn't know. Everyone gathers in the living room. A photo of a younger Claire is shown. The elderly woman takes another photo with her children and becomes emotional. Ryan, curious, asks if anyone from her family is still alive, and she responds that only the three of them are alive. Ryan, trying to lighten the mood, jokes that it must be nice to live forever. The elderly woman, with a sad look, replies that living forever means watching everyone you love die, saying that no one should be cursed to live so long. The next day, Claire calls for her grandmother, but cannot find her. They start looking for her. Bree and Ryan enter the barn and call for the elderly woman. Ryan spots something strange and goes to investigate. When Bree turns on the light, a scarecrow falls on Ryan, frightening him. He screams for help, and Bree rushes to lift the scarecrow off him. They continue the search through the forest, looking for the grandmother. Bree steps away while Ryan cleans his boots, making a lot of noise, and suddenly, someone approaches him from behind. When he turns, he sees it is the elderly woman, who scolds him for making noise and says he is disturbing the spirits. They regroup again, and Ryan asks what she was doing there. She answers that she was looking for a safe place to rest, leaving the boys confused. Ryan again asks what she means by a safe place to rest, and Bree, curious, asks if the object the grandmother is holding is a dream catcher. She confirms it is, and explains that evil is trapped in the web of the dream catcher. Ryan, joking, says that there must be a lot of evil around since there are probably 100 dream catchers scattered around the house. She, serious, replies that the greatest of all evils is the Wendigo, explaining that when an evil is too great for man to judge, the Wendigo is called, and that sometimes the dream catcher can bind and keep the evil away, but other times the dream catcher fails. She says that the Wendigo lives to kill and that it will never die. Then they all head back home. Claire asks where her grandmother was, and Ryan, in a calm tone, replies that she was checking the graves. They are in the bedroom when Ryan uncovers a giant skull. He begins to stroke it, intrigued. Then the young people head to the barn to grab some tools since they are going to collect a Christmas tree. They arrive in the forest and start chatting. Ryan asks how they will get back home since the GPS isn't working, and they keep walking, unaware of what awaits them. Ryan smells something strange, so they go to check it out and enter an abandoned place. They begin to rummage through the location, and Ryan asks what those things are when suddenly a man named Tuck knocks him to the ground. Another man named Kevin says it's none of his business and asks if he is alone. Bree appears at the window and tells him to shut up, when suddenly Ben appears and says he knows the boy. Then, they tie up the boy and drag him into the woods, planning to kill him. Bree quietly approaches from behind. They are about to throw Ryan into a well when Bree strikes Kevin, and Ryan tries to run, but Tuck pulls the rope, causing him to fall. But Bree cuts the rope and the two run. Then the sheriff arrives at the house to attend to the occurrence. He says he has seen one of the men before, and then Sheriff hints that they are lying. He asks if Bree attacked him with an axe, and she retorts, saying they were the ones who attacked, stating that they had a gun and were going to shoot her brother. The sheriff says he has never seen Ben be violent, and Ryan retorts, showing his wounds. Then Ryan accuses them of paying the sheriff to keep quiet. The elderly woman intervenes, saying that enough is enough, and tells the sheriff to leave. Ryan is scared because they know where he lives, but Bree reassures him, saying that it will be okay. Once again, he hears a noise coming from the cloth where the skull is, and he grabs it. When the grandmother arrives to tend to his wounds, she gives him a medicine to sleep. During the night, we see someone approaching the house, and we find out that Ryan had only a nightmare. He realizes that his wounds have already healed. Then, the elderly woman enters the room and says that the skull can end his enemies, fears, and everything else, but warns that, if you're not careful, it is very dangerous and hard to control. Ryan asks if she can control it, and she replies that what the Wendigo does cannot be controlled. Ryan pleads, saying they will kill him, so she turns her back and tells him to bring the skull when everyone is asleep. Later, we see that the elderly woman is mixing some things. She hands him a potion and says that the Wendigo's eyes will be his eyes, and he must give it the form of the forest. He drinks the mixture and begins the invocation ritual. He holds the scarecrow, and his hands bleed. She says he must speak in Ojibwe and begins the ritual. The skull sticks to the scarecrow, and the elderly woman says that when he is done, he must send the Wendigo back, and that he can never say its name again. He promises the elderly woman and starts running through the forest. Then Bree wakes him up, and he says he had a crazy dream. Upon leaving the house, he sees the scarecrow, and Claire asks what that is. He replies that it is for Christmas, and she tells him to get rid of it because she almost died of fright. He takes the scarecrow to the cemetery, but when he is about to leave, the scarecrow moves and looks at him. During the night, he sees through the Wendigo's eyes. The creature is now near Ben and his companions and watches them as they talk. It then moves alongside Ben. He looks ahead but sees nothing. Then he tosses a garbage bag into a hole, soon hearing a growl coming from inside the hole. He goes to look when suddenly the monster pulls him down into the depths. He screams for help, and Kevin rushes to the rescue. Ben says there is something down there, and Kevin throws a rope, starting to pull him up, but when he is about to come out, the Wendigo pulls him down. Kevin runs away, and Ryan wakes up, trying to grab something. He runs down the stairs and rushes into the forest, where he finds Ben's companions talking about his disappearance. Then Kevin says that his grandfather used to tell stories about the monster, but Tuck gets angry and tells him he is no longer 12. The men are arguing when suddenly, blood drips on Tuck, who is confused until he looks up and sees a corpse in a tree. They all run away terrified, while Ryan also watches in fear, as the Wendigo watches him. He runs back home, recalling what the elderly woman said, and stops in the middle of the path, looking back when Bree calls him. The two walk, and Bree thinks Ryan is acting strange. Then Ryan goes to look for the grandmother, knocks on the door, but she seems terrified. He hears his mother and sister talking about him, and Claire enters the room, asking if he is all right. He says he is just tired. The Wendigo is watching the house, and the elderly woman feels its presence. While they are having dinner, the Wendigo takes over Ryan's body, which goes out to hunt. Then we see Tuck and his son outside the house. The boy seems to sense something strange while the father chops wood, and the Wendigo watches, passing by the man. Suddenly, we see Ryan attacking Tuck while his son observes everything. He kills the man, and the scene changes, showing Ryan outside the house, trying to eat something imaginary. Bree is startled by her brother's behavior and calls for her mother. They approach him and take him to the hospital. The doctor calls Claire to talk and asks if he uses any type of illegal substance. Claire replies that he has never used anything, and the doctor says she will order toxicology tests. Bree insists that her brother does not use drugs, but Claire says she is no longer sure about that. The next morning, Ryan suggests they go find a Christmas tree. Bree is afraid to go back there, but he insists that it will be fine, and she agrees. They find a tree, and Ryan starts to cut it down wildly, while Bree finds his behavior strange. They are returning home when Bree says that the elderly woman has locked herself in her room and does not want to come out, suggesting they go back to California. But Ryan insists that he will stay, asking her to join him. Suddenly, a car appears, and we see it is Kevin, staring at the siblings. Ryan glares back with an angry look. While the girls talk, Ryan takes the opportunity to bring dinner to the elderly woman. They talk, and the elderly woman retorts that the Wendigo is hungry and needs to hunt, and she tells him not to give in to the Wendigo, but he insists that he can control it. She tells him he cannot control it, so he asks if she is so afraid of it because she helped bring it back. She replies that there is a debt that is unpaid, and begins to tell a story about a winter in the past that was much worse than any other. She says that many died that winter, and her father had to eat from the dead. We then see that she is talking about the man from the beginning of the film, who was her father, and that the elders called the Wendigo to punish him. She says she would also be punished, and that her father gave her a dream catcher to protect herself, but she could not stop the curse. She says she is cursed to live until the Wendigo dies, and the boy says he can protect her and that he can control it. But the elderly woman counters, saying that the Wendigo only seduces and uses the person. She admits that she used it for her own good, but regrets it and asks him to renounce the Wendigo, but he insists that he will continue, beginning to say that his whole life he was weak and scared. But now he is no longer fearful. Now he can do anything. The elderly woman says he will be cursed, but he calls the Wendigo back and begins the hunt for Kevin. Inside the trailer, Kevin is talking to someone on the phone about what happened with Ben. He is sitting on the couch when suddenly he hears a noise under the trailer, which begins to shake. He grabs a machete and runs to the car, but the monster lifts the car, dropping it and making it crash into another vehicle. Kevin is inside the car when suddenly the Wendigo tears the door off and pulls him out. He stabs the monster with the machete, which recoils, but then quickly removes the machete. Kevin crawls on the ground trying to escape, but the monster reaches him and plunges the machete into his leg, leaving him immobile. With a brutal move, it uses a piece of the torn-off door to sever his legs. At the moment, he prepares for the final blow. Ryan wakes up, interrupting the horrific scene. The next morning, Claire is worried about her grandmother, and we see Ryan removing the dream catchers, storing them in the barn. Suddenly, the sheriff's car arrives at the house, and the Wendigo continues to watch as the sheriff passes. He says he found the bodies of the men who attacked the kids. While the sheriff talks, the Wendigo tries to enter the boy's body, but he returns to reality. The sheriff says he does not seem surprised, and Ryan says that some bastards were killed. The sheriff retorts that they weren't killed, but massacred. Claire interrupts and asks what the sheriff is trying to say, and the atmosphere becomes tense. The sheriff says Ryan is a suspect in a triple homicide. The boy tells the sheriff to leave them alone, and Claire tells the sheriff to go away. Bree, confused, asks her brother what is happening. Ryan, with a distant look, murmurs, "The sheriff is dead." Bree, scared, asks him to stop with that. After all, the sheriff is leaving. But in the blink of an eye, Ryan switches places with the monster, and a relentless hunt begins. The monster crosses in front of the sheriff's car, causing him to get out of the car with a flashlight. He searches the area and sees nothing, but hears a noise behind him and goes to check. When he turns around, the monster is right behind him. He shoots the monster several times, but it has no effect. Then Bree tries to wake him, but he attacks her, and they begin a fierce fight. Meanwhile, the monster finishes off the sheriff. She strangles him and tells him to stop this, but he warns that if she does, the monster will come after her. She asks what will come after her, when suddenly Claire enters the room and tells Bree to let Ryan go. He warns that the monster is coming and that he can't stop it. Then, Claire goes to talk to the elderly woman and says that they were just stories she heard when she was little, but the elderly woman rebuts, affirming that they are not just stories, they are real, and that the Wendigo is not just evil, it is malevolent. Claire asks what is happening to Ryan, when suddenly the monster appears at the window, scaring her. It starts banging on the door, and they prepare, with Ryan grabbing an axe and a shotgun. They head upstairs while the elderly woman stays downstairs. The monster manages to enter and lets out a ghastly roar. Ryan and the girls hide in the room, turning off the lights. The monster climbs the stairs, knocking down the lights, and Ryan begins to make a hole in the wall to escape, while the monster breaks down the door. They flee through the other room and exit the house, but stop in front of the car, and Ryan says he can't hide from it when the Wendigo emerges from the car. Claire throws a lantern at the monster, which starts to catch fire, and they take the chance to flee, entering the barn and locking themselves inside. The monster manages to extinguish the fire and begins trying to break down the door. Ryan stabs the Wendigo with a hay fork, but he manages to break down the barn door. Then Bree throws the dream catchers at the monster, which gives Claire a chance to run it over with the tractor. She crushes the monster, and they run to their mother, but the monster manages to get out and tries to attack them again. The elderly woman arrives with a protector and wards off the creature, handing it to Ryan, who faces the Wendigo. While the elderly woman runs to the cemetery, Ryan runs after her, and the monster chases them. The elderly woman kneels down and begins to speak in Ojibwe. Ryan tries to attack the monster, but he manages to defend himself and glares at the boy, who glares back. Then, the girls arrive and stab the Wendigo from behind. He manages to get away and is about to attack when the elderly woman pins something on his face. The monster manages to free himself and grabs her face, and then she says that it is the last time and plunges a knife into herself, ending the monster. The family mourns, and the next day, they hold a burial for the grandmother. As they walk away from the cemetery, Ryan suddenly stops and looks at the forest. He feels a familiar presence, as if he is being watched, and the film ends with them leaving the town.